Welcome to Flop Files. Before Walt Disney built the most famous entertainment empire on Earth, he was broke, bankrupt, and repeatedly told he would never succeed. In fact, he lost everything more than once before creating the magic we know today. Part 1. Bankrupt at 22. You know, Walt's legendary work ethic didn't just appear out of thin air. It started with an absolute, grueling grind that was met with some really brutal, soul-crushing rejections. Growing up, there were absolutely no silver spoons for him. We're talking about a kid who was out there delivering newspapers at 4:30 in the morning in literally all weather conditions before school even started. He was so incredibly desperate to make his mark that at just 16 years old, he actually forged his birth year so he could drive an ambulance for the Red Cross in World War I. And he covered that whole ambulance in his own cartoon drawings. But when he got back home, reality hit him hard. His early art career totally stalled when a newspaper editor actually fired him for, and get this, supposedly lacking creativity and having zero good ideas. Crazy, right? And if you look at his early business timeline, it's basically a roadmap of constant struggles. He launches his very first business, Walt Disney, in 1920. It lasts exactly 1 month. Undeterred, he turns around and starts his first animation company, Laugh-O-Gram. He was pouring his absolute heart and soul into it, but honestly, he was kind of a terrible businessman at the time. By the time he was 22, Laugh-O-Gram went completely bankrupt after he was swindled out of $11,000 by a distributor. To put that into perspective, back then that was a massive, life-ruining fortune. Walt was left with literally nothing. Things got so unbelievably dark that his own brother, Roy, wrote him a letter basically saying, "Call it quits, kid. You can't do anything more than you've already done." But Walt? There was no way he was giving up. He scraped together just enough money working random odd jobs for a one-way train ticket to Hollywood, chasing this completely impossible dream. He'd eventually find a hit with a brand new character. But as we're going to see in a second, this early success was a total mirage, and it led straight into his most devastating betrayal yet. Part 2. The ultimate IP theft. So, Walt finally catches a real break, creating this wildly popular cartoon series around a character named Oswald the Lucky Rabbit. He heads out to New York in 1928, fully expecting to negotiate a nice, profitable contract. Instead, he walks right into a brutal reality check. His distributor, Charles Mintz, had legally secured all the rights to Oswald. Walt didn't even own his own creation, and to add unbelievable insult to injury, Mintz had secretly gone behind his back and poached almost every single one of Walt's animators. Mintz actually sat there and gave him a super harsh ultimatum: take a massive pay cut and work for me as an employee, or you lose everything. Walt walked away. He was left with exactly one loyal animator, his buddy Ub Iwerks. Facing the absolute collapse of his entire life's work, Walt was right back to square one. Real quick, if you're enjoying this story, subscribe to Flop Files and share this explainer with a friend who loves business stories and documentaries. Part 3. Started by a mouse. Okay, so picture this. Stripped of his intellectual property and almost his entire team, Walt boards a train from Manhattan to head back to Los Angeles. It was on this desperate, anxiety-filled cross-country ride home, knowing he had to deliver this catastrophic news to his brother, that Walt sat down and just started doodling. He knew he needed a miracle to save his company before that train even pulled into the station. And that frantic little sketch, yeah, that became Mickey Mouse. But Walt was smart. He knew a good drawing wasn't going to be enough on its own. He needed a technological edge to really stand out. So he pushes his tiny, bare-bones team to combine Mickey with the groundbreaking innovation of synchronized sound. When Steamboat Willie premiered, it wasn't just a cartoon. It was an instant, massive cultural phenomenon. Walt even voiced Mickey himself. The whole gamble paid off perfectly. Mickey gave Walt the ultimate financial security. Now, most people at this point would just take those fat dividends and play it safe, right? Not Walt. He had zero interest in personal profit. Instead, he was about to take everything he had just painfully rebuilt and risk the whole shebang on a totally untested, seemingly impossible dream. Part 4. Risking it all again. Walt decides he's going to create the very first full-length cel-animated feature film, Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. His peers in the industry openly mocked him. They literally called it Disney's folly, and honestly, they were almost right. It was deemed way too expensive and technically difficult, the production just dragged on, and the film won a staggering 400% over budget. Walt was risking total, humiliating bankruptcy all over again just to get this single movie made. Because to make the animation actually feel realistic and pull audiences into the story, standard flat drawing techniques just weren't going to cut it anymore. So his studio invents the multi-plane camera. Think of it kind of like a giant mechanical layered cake. It split the artwork into separate foreground, middle ground, and background layers. By moving these individual layers at different speeds toward the camera lens, they created true three-dimensional depth in a totally flat cartoon world. It was a real game changer. Developed by a brilliant technician named Bill Garrity, this massive vertically oriented camera was an absolute engineering marvel that required a whole team of people just to operate it. It actually won a Scientific and Engineering Academy Award. And as for Snow White, well, it became one of the highest-grossing films of all time. But did Walt finally sit back and rest? No way. Part 5. Building the Magic Kingdom. He pours every single dime right back into his ultimate visions, expanding his empire way beyond just animated films and actually bringing it into the physical world. Over his entire career, he wins an astonishing 21 Oscars. He builds the Disneyland theme park, not just as an amusement park, but specifically designed as a place where parents and children could finally have fun together. And showing his incredibly deep passion for nurturing future talent, he founded the California Institute of the Arts, or CalArts. It was a school that admitted students based purely on artistic merit, and he even left 25% of his entire estate just to fund it. Walt Disney's story proves that failure isn't the opposite of success. Sometimes it's the price you pay to achieve it. So, what impossible dream are you giving up on a little too soon? Thanks for watching Flop Files.